week we're preparing to celebrate the day of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, day of Lag BaOmer, and reading the Torah portion called Behar. So there's some connection between this Parsha and Lag BaOmer, especially this year, because right after Shabbos, Lag BaOmer begins. It was right connected. So the name Behar means Mount Sinai. Behar means a mountain. And it seems to be talking about being way up there. You're on a mountain. You feel great. You're on a mountain, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, the Torah talks about, in this week's Torah portion, a person making a mistake, another mistake, and another mistake, and another mistake, and him getting hit over the head for it. Torah says, talks about this week about the mitzvah of Shemitah. Then it talks about a person selling his property, a person selling his land, and then it talks about a person selling his house, and then having to borrow money with interest, then having to sell himself as a slave, and sell him a slave not just to a Jewish slave, but selling himself to a non-Jew as a slave, and not just selling himself to a non-Jew, but selling himself to idolatry. So it sounds like we're talking about somebody who's really, really down on his luck. And the Talmud says, if you don't keep the mitzvah of Shemitah, the mitzvah of keeping the land fallow every 7 years, so then you'll end up having to sell your property, end up having to sell your house, you have to borrow with interest, and you have to sell yourself as a slave. All calamities that are happening to this person. On the other hand, it's called the Torah portion of the mountain, a portion where you're way up there, you're high, you're doing great. Similar question could be asked about the Haftorah. The Haftorah this week was about Yirmiyahu. Yirmiyahu prophesizes about the destruction of the temple. And Hashem tells him, in this middle of this prophecy, Hashem says to him, I want you to go to your cousin. And I want you to go buy land from your cousin. And his cousin sells him this land at an exorbitant price, 10 selah and 7 monah. And the property he's buying is similar to investing in kibbutz Be'eri, in Israel, investing in Gaza. It's not some
Great place.
not a great place to invest. It seems especially when the destruction of the temple is happening. Like this joke, people advertisement on October 6th. This guy's selling he's renting his house with 4 rooms. Then the day later, actually renting a house with 3 rooms. October 2nd, then there's 2 rooms with 1 room. Actually, there's a place with a porch over there, in Gaza. So it doesn't seem to be a good idea for Yirmiyahu to invest in this property when he's talking about the Jewish temple being destroyed, the land being destroyed. And yet Hashem says, no, I want you to go invest in this land. And what they did is that Hashem is telling him that at the same time he's talking to him about the destruction, Hashem is telling him to invest in redemption. Hashem is telling him to live with redemption, to live with a future redemption while the present era is one of destruction. Hashem instructs Yirmiyahu to invest and live with redemption. And a similar thing is in the Torah portion. Although a lot of calamities are happening, the Jew is meant to feel that he's on the mountain. And the reason for this is because every descent is the purpose of an ascent. Every negative thing that happens in Hashem's world is only for the purpose of something better happening. And the question, though, is this: how do you live with redemption when you're experiencing exile? And the answer is Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, whose day we're celebrating this coming Sunday, was unique among all the sages of Israel, not only in his proficiency in the revealed parts of Torah and in Kabbalah. There were other tzaddikim who were proficient, maybe not as great as him, in both areas of Torah. What was unique, Rabbi Chanan ben Akana was proficient in Kabbalah, and many other sages were as well, and they were also proficient in the revealed parts of Torah. It wasn't the knowledge of each of the segments of Torah that he brought to the table. What was unique about Reb Shimon Choi's Machatziv Ani Erpa, that he brought down the wall, the mechitza, the separation, in the revealed parts of Torah in their dimension of Torah. He revealed how it's all one Torah, how the Torah has a body and a soul, and the Torah is alive, and because he brought down this separation from the real parts of Torah in the dimension of Torah, that's why he himself, his life, was one when on one hand he was in the cave for all these years, running away from the Romans, right? He had to escape and hide in the cave. On the other hand, what do you have in the cave? He had in this cave of exile, absolute exile. He's in solitary confinement cases with his son of Lazar, but he's in this cave. What is he experiencing? Miracle after miracle after miracle, constant miracles. There is this carob tree, and there's this fountain of water that Hashem produces miracles in the cave. So he's on the one hand, the Torah says about him that he's one of the souls that never experienced destruction of the temple. In his world, it was like Mashiach came already. That's how he felt. And yet, what kind of life was he living? He was living a life of not just exile, the worst kind of exile. So Shimon Yochai empowers us also to, on the one hand, to be in a situation where it maybe seemed very dark, but to be able to see the light in it, just like you revealed in the Torah. You reveal the light that's in the Torah. In every part of Torah, revealed it in the revealed parts of Torah, the soul of Torah, so to enable the Jew to live beyond the exile, to see the coming of Mashiach even while the exile is happening. This is also connected to one specific mitzvah in this week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion, we learn about many, many mitzvahs. And one of them is a mitzvah, as I mentioned, of borrowing money and taking interest. Torah says it's forbidden to take money with interest. But it's forbidden to lend money and expect interest. It's forbidden to borrow money with interest. And the Sifri says, if you borrow money with interest, it's like you reject the yoke of heaven and you reject the Exodus. And if you accept upon yourself the yoke of ribbis, accept upon yourself the yoke of not accepting interest, then you accept upon yourself the yoke of heaven. Why is this? Why are they connected? I mean, this is one specific mitzvah. What does that have to do with the yoke of heaven? So different explanations are offered. One explanation given is that when Hashem gave us this mitzvah, he said, you should listen to me because I am Lord your God, took you out of Egypt. So if you don't keep this mitzvah, it's like you're denying Hashem to take us out of Egypt. Others offer that if you only want to lend money with interest, that shows a lack of faith. And so you're not trusting in Hashem. Okay, but that's more about trusting in Hashem. Others talk about how Hashem, when he took us out of Egypt, differentiated between the Jews and the non-Jews. And so too, you are allowed to take interest from a non-Jew, now take interest from a Jew. So this idea of differentiating between Jews and non-Jews is something that happened in Egypt by the plague of the firstborn. But that explanation leaves us wanting for more, because just one detail in the Exodus. One detail of the Exodus was that Hashem differentiated between Jews and the non-Jews, doesn't seem to explain it fully. Also, this explanation about trusting in Hashem. Let's say when you lend money to someone, forget about the interest. You're taking a risk. So it's not specifically the interest that makes it less risky. If you trust in Hashem, then you'll be able to lend money, period. Otherwise, you won't want to lend anyone money. Trusting in Hashem will allow you to do the mitzvah Hashem says of lending money. But it doesn't seem to be connected specifically to taking interest, and doesn't seem to connect it to the yoke of heaven. The brief says, you take upon yourself the mitzvah of not accepting interest, it's like you accepted the yoke of heaven. It's like you're trusting in Hashem. But why the yoke of heaven? What's the meaning of the yoke of heaven specifically? If you don't accept them, if you don't keep the mitzvah of interest, and you're taking interest, you're rejecting the yoke of heaven. Why are you rejecting the yoke of heaven? You're maybe expressing bad faith, you don't trust in Hashem. But again, it doesn't seem to be connected specifically to taking interest it seems to be connected to lending money in general. It doesn't seem to be connected to the yoke of heaven. It seems to be connected to trusting in Hashem. Period. What's the idea of the yoke of heaven? So to understand this, the passage in the Talmud that Hashem is not like a human king. A human king, he may issue commandments himself, but not keep them himself. He may say you have to do A, B, and C, but he himself doesn't keep those commandments. But Hashem, says the Talmud, whatever he does, he tells us to do. That's one passage in the Talmud. Another passage in the Talmud which reads, whatever he tells the Jewish people to do, he does himself. It sounds like they're saying the same thing. Whatever he tells us to do, he does. Whatever he does, tells us to do. It seems to be saying the same thing. But the Alter Rebbe explains that these two passages are actually talking about two kinds of responses, two kinds of relationships between us and Hashem. Let's go back to interest for a second. What's the meaning of accepting interest versus any other kind of investment? There is a loophole to this mitzvah of borrowing with interest, and it's called heter iska. Heter iska is a very complicated halachic procedure where you lend someone money, but you're allowed to accept interest for the money because you are a partner with them in their business. How does that make it better? In other words, the money is not considered lent. The money is considered more like a deposit in the hands of the borrower. And then if it's only a deposit and not a loan, then you're allowed to accept interest for this money. I'm oversimplifying it. There's many more facets to it, but that's a general principle. Why does that kosherize the interest? The general theme is this. Interest means you have money. You gave this money to someone else. They're using the money, and therefore the money is no longer yours. And you're gaining a profit for something that's no longer in your possession. You are gaining interest. You're gaining profit for something that you no longer have. Versus heter iska means that the money is still in your possession, and you are still an owner, and you're gaining profit not from money you earned a long time ago and is no longer here. You're gaining money from something that's currently in your possession. That's a general idea behind heter iska. What's the difference between if you have the money now, don't have the money now? What's the difference? So let's go back to this passage in the Talmud. The Alter Rebbe says there are two different ways Hashem connects to us through a mitzvah. One way is, in the first passage of the Talmud, whatever Hashem does, he tells us to do. It means Hashem empowers us to do a mitzvah. Hashem makes it possible to do a mitzvah. By him putting on tefillin, whatever putting on tefillin means for Hashem, as the Talmud says, in our tefillin it talks about the greatness of Hashem. And Hashem's tefillin talks about the greatness of the Jewish people. In Hashem's tefillin it says, who is like your people, one nation on the earth? And Hashem's tefillin talks about how great we are. So when Hashem puts on tefillin, that allows us and empowers us to do this mitzvah. He empowers us, he injects power in the mitzvahs that we do. He empowers us to do the mitzvahs. That's one passage in the Talmud. The other passage in the Talmud reads, whatever he tells us to do, he does himself. That's more reactive. It's not about Hashem doing the mitzvahs first. It's about him reacting to our mitzvahs. As it says in the Gemara, whenever a Jew studies Torah, Hashem comes and studies Torah with a Jew. Hashem reacts to the mitzvah that you do. You're learning Torah, Hashem comes and studies Torah with you. Hashem says words of Torah with you. He's responding to your mitzvah. So when a person accepts money with interest, i.e., he is gaining from something he had a long time ago, that's identical to Hashem being involved in the mitzvah before he does the mitzvah. That Hashem is empowering him to the mitzvah. What he's doing right now is his own thing. But Hashem empowered him to do this mitzvah. So there's no sense of a yoke of heaven. It doesn't seem to be Hashem's mitzvah anymore. Hashem empowered him to do something else. There's a feeling of self, there's a feeling of I'm doing something. But when a Jew does not accept interest, what he's saying is I'm not taking profit from something I've earned a long time ago. I'm only taking profit of what I have right now. I'm not taking profit of what I had before. By that declaration, by Jew saying I'm not taking profit of something that I owned a long time ago, he's also giving that same kind of energy into the mitzvahs that he does. Which means that it's not only that Hashem empowered him to do the mitzvah, but more that that in the mitzvah itself, he feels that this is Hashem's mitzvah. That Hashem is not just commanding him right now, but Hashem is reacting to him right now. He is doing the mitzvah, Hashem is responding to his mitzvah. It's something that's happening now. It's not something that's happened before. Hashem empowered us to do the mitzvah that we're doing now. He empowered us before. But right now, we're doing the mitzvah. We feel that this is Hashem's mitzvah because Hashem's reacting to us. I was listening to Rabbi Sheikh Taub interview Rabbi Cohen, Rabbi Greenglass's son-in-law, about Rabbi Greenglass, a great Kabbalist from Montreal. And he actually met someone who testified to the story. I've heard the story many, many times, but I didn't know if it was true. We did Kiddush Levana last night. People always joke about moving away the clouds with a handkerchief. So he testified that he met someone, and this guy actually was there when he took a handkerchief out, and he says about Moshe Rabbeinu, how the Jews do Kiddush Levana when they're in the desert. Moshe Rabbeinu moving away the clouds. So in a similar way, the Greenglass moved his handkerchief around, and they were able to do Kiddush Levana. That's what they did. I mean, some we know about the Rebbe, similar stories of the Rebbe, but this is just a chassid, regular. I mean, he's a great man and everything, but he's just a chassid. He's not a Rebbe. He wasn't a Rebbe. And yet, his action caused an action in the clouds moving around. So in a similar way, the Alter Rebbe says you have to realize, you do a little act in this world, it causes a major impact on heaven. Like the Alter Rebbe gives an analogy of the movement of the sun. In order for your shadow to move a little bit, the sun has to move thousands of miles for your shadow to move a little bit. So similar way, the tiniest mitzvah you're doing, the earth doesn't move.
Okay.
That's the position of Torah. Not poetry, it's Torah. It's science. This is science. You want? I'll send you the Rebbe's science about this. So the earth stays in stationary, and the sun moves 1,000 miles for a shadow to move. Similar way, you're in this world. You are one mitzvah, and this mitzvah you're doing elevates all of it. It says in the Torah when you bring one sacrifice to Hashem, it elevates the whole animal kingdom. The whole world is elevated through one mitzvah. So, what's the reward for keeping the mitzvah of ribbis? The reward is you will be resurrected when Mashiach comes. You will stand up when Mashiach comes, all other Jews together. When you keep the mitzvah ribbis, the expression of the yoke of heaven. What's the connection between living forever and the yoke of heaven? We understand that now. Is your mitzvah your own thing, or do you feel in the mitzvah connection to Hashem? Is your mitzvah connected to the Creator? Is your mitzvah eternal? Is your mitzvah forever? Is it something godly, or is it just something that you're doing on your own? If you accept ribbis, what you're saying is, I'm gaining profit from something that happened before. Similarly, what will happen is Hashem will empower you to do mitzvahs, but it won't be a reaction to your mitzvahs. On the other hand, conversely, if you keep the mitzvah ribbis carefully, which means that you're saying that I'm not taking any gain from something I've done before, I'm only accepting a profit from what I have right now, what I own right now, that causes also that Hashem is present in your mitzvahs, and Hashem, when you study Torah, Hashem will study Torah with you and reacts to your mitzvahs. There's a presence of Hashem in your mitzvahs. And so this is connected with discussing before about you may be in the exile, but you feel the infinity of the mitzvahs that you're doing. You feel the infinity of the Torah that you're learning. You feel that this is something otherworldly, something godly. It's not just the action itself. You feel that you're on the mountain. You feel like Rabbi Shimon Yochai, may be in the cave, but he feels no, he's not in the cave. He feels he's like the base of English is still standing. Mashiach is here. That's how Rabbi Shimon Yochai felt. That's empowerment of the mitzvah of ribbis. It connects us to the Creator and allows our mitzvahs to be forever, which is the idea of the resurrection of the dead. But we'll live forever. Why will we live forever? Because we kept the mitzvah of not taking interest. That mitzvah highlights the relationship between Hashem and us in our mitzvahs. I was reading a story yesterday about this chassid named Rabbi Chanan Shlogalov, all Shalom. He said when the communists came, they had this process. I got the Russian word for it, but basically they took ownership of all of the property of everyone, and to give it to share it with everyone, because the government came in and they shared everyone's property. Everyone, we say it needs to be fair. That's a communist ideal, but they only share with people who were part of the Communist Party. Yeah. But someone who wasn't part of the party, like someone who was keeping Shabbos, wasn't really eligible. One winter day, they took all of their properties, they put it out in front of their house in the ground, and he had to take had to hire this guy to carry his possessions to somewhere. Where they're going to go? They're literally in the street. So we're going to go to this shul. The shul was called the Workman's Shul, and they go in this. They live in the shul for years. And there was a draft in the shul. There's no running water in the shul. There's no running water anywhere, really. I mean, it was very primitive. The city of Hummel. One thing that stood out to me in the story was they had to go to this well to get water. The well was some distance away from the shul, and they had, Baruch Hashem, 6 children, and so every day they had to go to the well to get water. When do they need water? Well, they need water to drink. They want to wash hands for bread. They also need water every morning to have water by their beds or by their position in the shul on the floor. And we need water. Everybody is water. Picture this, everyone. Picture this. This little girl, the older girl of the family, but the older girl goes another with her brother. They walk a far distance away to a well. They have this pail on their shoulders. They have like a yoke with 2 pails. They go to the well and they lower the pails down into the well. They fill them with water, and they come back in the middle of the night so that everyone has water the next day to wash their hands by their bed. It's unbelievable. And devotion he had to this mitzvah, even though he was in the worst kind of exile. He's living in this shul and very difficult conditions. I mean, one thing among others he said was that on Pesach, they had about this amount of matzah for the whole Pesach. And so what they ate the whole Pesach was potatoes and onions. The whole Pesach, potatoes and onions. So he's living in exile, and yet there was such a joy that the children describe in going to the well. We're going to get water for Neglavas. We're going to get water to wash our hands. It's unbelievable. They're living on the one hand in exile, on the other hand they're living completely above exile. And the point is not that we should live in exile, but beyond exile. But Shum Yochai uniquely is connected to the coming of Mashiach and redemption, as he said in the Zohar, that with the Zohar we will exit the exile with mercy. So the Shum Yochai is about redemption, about the miracles of Hashem, which we see the miracles of Hashem, the coming of Mashiach, and we should celebrate like with the Shum Yochai in this world, the coming of Mashiach. Chaim. Chaim. Question.